Hey guys, it's Comic College Studios here, and today we are going to be showing the results of the first ever Planet Coaster 2 competition hosted in the Unload Station Discord server. If you guys watching on YouTube haven't joined yet, be sure to do so, as we're probably going to do another one of these because I'm really happy to see how all of these coasters came out. I want to give a huge thank you to everyone who participated. Really do appreciate it because it was really cool to see all of your creations. And joining me are the three other judges, Vinny, Sammy, and Aaron, all of which are up in the higher level, I guess you could say, of the Discord server. So we have four different categories that we're going to be grading these coasters on. Realism, which is worth 10 points. Smoothness, which is worth 10 points. Theming slash presentation, which is worth 15 points. Creativity, which is worth 5 points. And all of that adds together for a total of 40 points possible. And by the end of this, we'll know which coaster winds up winning. So we're going to be going through these in order as they were submitted, which means that the first one comes from user Corolla SE on Discord, and this coaster is called Mind Blast. So here we go. So this is an Intamin Blitz style coaster right here. It's got two spikes. It's a very interesting layout.
So the story that he wrote for it says, back in 1876, Jerry lost his magical minecart. He spent many weeks looking for it, but he had no luck. He decided he's going to build himself a new one. In the process of building a new one, his old one found out he's building a new one. Sorry, so many words. His old minecart came back for one last mine blast and took Jerry along for the ride. The riders on the ride will experience many fast-paced maneuvers, forward and backward sections, and a couple of fast-paced inversions.
And that definitely looks to be the case from looking at this layout. I am going to go ahead and hop on for a POV now, just so we can watch that as we kind of review it as we go through the ride layout. We're going to go in the front row for this. Now, I will preface that I am a bit of a stickler when it comes to smoothness, so I'm going to try to be as fair as possible because of the way I build coasters in this game. First up, let's talk about realism.
I would easily say a 9. There's like a couple hicks. For the most part, it's like actually like really realistic.
I'm going to go with a 7. I think there are a lot of realistic elements. I think the ending, as cool as that is, I don't know if a manufacturer would do that, but I do like the idea.
In terms of realism, I'm gonna say like an 8. Like most of it is very realistic. There are just like a few points where it's like either the manufacturer would smooth that out or like not do it. Like Sammy mentioned, the spike.
I'm personally going to give it a 7 for realism. I do agree that the spike, maybe not like the most realistic. I think it's really creative though. And there are some moments throughout the ride, and like I said, I tend to just be critical, so don't take it to heart, that are a little, jarring or a little unrealistic. But I think overall that it is a fairly realistic ride. So that means that for realism, Corolla SE is going to get a 7.75 when you average out our 4 scores there. It's a really solid performance. Now let's talk smoothness. I'm probably going to give it, I think they'll go with a 7 again. I do think that, like, in terms of the way it tracks, it is definitely very smooth for the most part. I mean, you can see a couple little jitters here and there, and of course, it's worth noting that this is Planet Coaster 2. It's impossible to get something perfectly smooth. But all things considered, I think this is a pretty well done job in terms of smoothness.
This is where like my side of things isn't the same because I don't really do coasters as much in Planet Coaster, but I'm gonna go with an 8. I think it's pretty smooth. There's a couple moments that are a little like janky, but that's just kind of Planet Coaster as it is. So again, don't take it to heart.
I'm gonna give it an 8 as well. It's for the most part, it looks really good. There is those little kinks you have that could use improvement.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you guys here. It's definitely an 8 in smoothness. Just a few moments, but like overall, very smooth.
That is going to give Corolla SE another 7.75 for smoothness, which again, very solid performance here. And again, don't take anything to heart too badly. We got to be as strict as possible with the grading. So nobody's going to get a perfect score if I had to take a guess. But I do think the next category, which is theming slash presentation, is definitely going to be a strong point for Mind Blast. I am going to give this one, honestly, probably an 11. And I think this is a really well done job. I mean, you get the point across with the theme. I love the backstory as well and how it definitely does tie in with the attraction. And I'm always a sucker for kind of a Western theme. So personally, I feel an 11 is pretty fair for this.
I'm a little bit harsher in this category because this is kind of like my cup of tea. I'm gonna have to say a 10. There are really good things, and I think the custom supporting is a huge factor into your presentation for it. Same with the Western theme. Western theme is great. I'm glad you made a station, et cetera, and there's a lot of cool things. It's just a little spread out for me, for my liking. Again, it's nothing against you. This is just how I think about things. Otherwise, though, it's really cool. I love the tunnels and everything.
I'm gonna be a little bit more lenient on this because like I'm a sucker for like any theming. The Western theme I really like. I like the rock work with it, the terrain with the sandish, and then the tunnels. I think it's really good. I'm gonna give this 13 out of 15. I haven't seen the others yet, but like this is already like a good start.
Now, I've seen what like Sammy can do with his theming, and like it's nothing Sammy would make, but it's still quite good with the custom supports. You have a nice like big station and bigger elements around the area, so I would give it a 12.
Okay. That means that they will be getting an 11.5 for the theming/presentation category, which again is really, really solid. And now the least consequential category, but still something very important, is going to be creativity. And I gotta be honest, I think this gets a perfect 5 out of 5 for creativity. I really, really like the design of this layout because not only does it feel true to something that Intamin might do, it also incorporates that really, really cool finale with the spike, which, as unrealistic as it may be, I think that you definitely get points for creativity for having something that's more than just a generic brake run. So I'm going to give you a perfect 5 out of 5 for creativity here.
You're going to be getting a 4 out of 5 for me. Like Colin said, just to piggyback, the ending absolutely like just left field. Love it. But like, a lot of it is like something an Intamin would do, which is really good. It's kind of hard to like judge like realism and creativity. So like, again, I'm not nitpicking you what you did. It's just kind of how I put two things together.
You're getting a 5 out of 5 from me for creativity.
So for me, it would be a 4. I feel like if he made the train a little more custom, it would be a 5.
With all of your points. So that means that they're going to be getting a 4.5 for the creativity, which when we add up all of the other categories, that leads to a 31.5 out of 40, which is very good. And I think that this is genuinely a really well done ride. And I want to thank you again, Corolla SE, for submitting this. It's really, really cool. Very well done. Great job on your Intamin Blitz coaster here, Mind Blast. So now we're going to move on to the next coaster, which comes from XYRAXIS. I guess I don't even want to try to pronounce that. But the ride is called Wrath of the Natron Titan.
You and other explorers embark on a journey through an old site of civilization in western Colombia. As you arrive on the site, you all go into jeeps and begin looting the valley below. As you fly through ruins, you manage to collect a decent bounty. However, you return back up the mountain, this time a little further away from the airstrip. You find a sort of temple in the jungle and realize your grave mistake. Will you make it back to the airstrip safely, or will the wrath of the Natron Titan overcome you?
So before we do any ratings, I am going to play the POV real quick. This is obviously a mock launch coaster. The three options for coaster types for this competition was the mock launch coaster, the Intamin Blitz coaster, and the Vekoma launch coaster, and there is a decent variety amongst all of those throughout the submissions here. This is the first one from mock. It's definitely a very aggressive ride, that is for sure. Just something to note, I do have the G-force readings playing for all of these rides, so we are going to be looking to see if they would fit within realistic standards or ASTM. It does have a max vertical G-force of 7.3, max lateral 3.74, minimum vertical of negative 2.37, which, like I said, is definitely going to play a part in this first category, which is realism. And again, please don't be mad for being me being a little brutal, but I am going to give it a 2 out of 10 for realism, just because the G-forces go way beyond the limits of what would realistically be acceptable for a coaster that was built in real life.
I'm also going to continue. I think I'm going to have to go with a 2, unfortunately. Banking offset wasn't really a factor in this ride, and I think that's kind of what ruins a lot of the G-forces and some of the other elements in this ride.
I'm going to also have to give it a 2. It's a cool concept, however, the valleys are just way too tight, and there's like not really much you can do to fix them unless like redesigning like that entire area.
I feel like you guys are being a little too harsh, but obviously this is out of the realm of, oh, it's going to be built by mock. If you rode this in real life, you're not going to die. You're going to like pass out. You might get injured, but you make it back probably in one piece. So I would give it like a 4.
So with all of our ratings, that does average out to a 2.5 out of 10 for realism, and that actually leads quite well into the smoothness. And again, I'm sorry if I sound harsh. I am going to be a little harsh. I am going to give this I'll give it a 3 for smoothness because for the most part the elements are fairly like not super jerky. There are some moments that are very jerky, and obviously the unrealism or the unrealistic factors of the attraction definitely play into that.
You're gonna get a 4 out of me for smoothness. I think the thing that saved you, at least for me, is that even though some of like the transitions don't make sense, they do blend. But otherwise, yeah, there's a lot of jerky moments in it.
I'm gonna go 4 out of 10 for smoothness. There is a lot of jerky moments. Overall, the ride is sort of smooth, like in most parts.
I'm just gonna have to agree with everyone here. I would also just give it a 4 of smoothness. It's not terrible, but like you could definitely improve it.
The next category that we have is going to be theming slash presentation. I definitely think that this is this coaster's strong point. I really do like all of the foliage and the jungle. It really does feel like you are in a jungle going on this journey. So I am going to give this a 10 out of 15 for the theming. I think it is well done. And I also like Fire That Blast once the train gets up there. I think it's a really, really nice touch.
You're gonna get a 9 from me. Well, I think it looks great. There's a lot of definitely copy and paste pieces, and it does work for this ride. And one thing I noticed where I kind of gave you a little extra is there are some custom supports in there, so I kind of like that attention to detail. But it does feel like you took the brush and kind of just went a little crazy with it, and while that works, it just kind of feels like the brush, and that's kind of where I took some points off.
I think this is really amazingly done. The jungle theme is amazing. I love jungle themes. It fits really well. It blends in really well. It's almost like you can't really tell there's a roller coaster there. And then like the theme pieces like just work so well. So I'm gonna give this one personally a 12 out of 15.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like theming wise, it's on par with the last one we just saw. Like the last one definitely had like less, but it was better. And then this definitely has more, but it's not as good. So I'm also gonna give it a 12.
That equals out to a 10.75 for the theming slash presentation category, which brings us to our final category for this attraction, which is going to be creativity. Now, this one is interesting because I do think that the terrain aspect definitely plays a role in the creativity of this layout. But at the same time, a lot of these elements are definitely kind of like more traditional elements you'd see and nothing too out of the ordinary in terms of like creativity. So I'm personally going to be giving this a 3 out of 5. I really do like the terrain usage, but otherwise it is fairly run-of-the-mill.
You're gonna get a 5 out of 5 for me, actually. I think that the ride itself, while it's definitely not as realistic as some other rides out there for Planet Coaster, you definitely tried something very different, and I don't think a manufacturer would quite exactly do what you did, especially that roll that we just saw. Like there are things like that that I don't think a manufacturer would try, and it's creative. It's something that nobody else does. So you're gonna get a 5 out of 5 from me.
It's a very creative ride. It's really bold what they tried to do with like all of like these theming pieces and stuff. I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 5 for creativity.
I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5, and I want to highlight one element in here that I think is really cool. It's like a wave turn, but it's like mixed with a stangle dive. Like think like Copperhead strikes stangle dive through the loop, but it's more profile to be a wave turn. I really like that idea of an element, and I kind of want to steal that and put that on one of my rides.
So with that, that gives you a 4.25 for the creativity category, and an overall score of a 21.25 out of 40, which is very solid. Currently, we do have Mind Blast in first place and Wrath of the Natron Titan in second place, obviously, because that's the only one we've done. But I really do like this ride. I think the jungle theme, like we said, is really, really well done. And now it is time for the next coaster, which comes from Skyline Coasters. All right, and here we go. This ride is called Ourea. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Sam, you want to hit us with that backstory that they provided?
When a jungle tour goes wrong because of a campfire explosion and heads to the mountains, we take a journey from the jungle to the diamond mines of the mountains in the jungle van, riding through drops, inversions, and 3 launches.
This is quite the interesting looking ride, that is for sure. Obviously, it's very much so set in this mountain, and as you said, it is kind of themed after escaping the jungle, which you can very much so see over here. So, without further ado, let's hop on and see how this thing rides. It is a 3-car Intamin Blitz model. The first category, of course, is realism, and in between 2 numbers here on this one, I'm probably going to lean more... I'll give it a 7. I think that really the only reason I knock points off of this is because there are a few moments where the G-forces spike above legal limits. You can see that it does go over 5, which really isn't terrible. It's more so that it's a very sustained 5.3.
I think I'm gonna also agree with a 7. I was kind of going between that and an 8. Like Colin said, I saw a couple of points where it spiked. The layout itself, though, I think someone would probably do this. A couple of the realism points I also knocked off where it gets a little close to the ground, and then also the doors open on the track.
I'm gonna say 7 as well. I was originally gonna go with an 8, but then Sammy just reminded me the doors open on the track, which you would want to have that slightly above. And then there was just a couple moments where the G-forces went out of the realistic mark. Not much though.
I was thinking about giving it maybe a 5, because I really don't see a manufacturer doing like the second and third launch succession, how it does like a small launch, goes up into a roll, then launches up the mountain into an unbanked turn, and then there's a door that's like on the track. I mean, obviously some of that is super unrealistic, but like the parts that like maybe could be done, I don't see a manufacturer actually doing that.
That leads to a 6.5 out of 10 for realism. And next up is going to be smoothness. And I'm actually going to be very generous here. I'm going to give you a 9 for smoothness. I think besides a couple of the weird unbanked transitions, for the most part, this is a very smooth attraction. All of the elements flow together really, really well. I especially like your inversions. Those felt really smooth to me.
I think I'm gonna go with an 8 out of 10 here. You definitely, I think, what worked well was your smoothness into like the inversions. They look really good, and you could definitely tell there was a banking offset and whatnot. I think where you could use some improvement is your turns. And your turns all kind of have like a weird shank to them, either entering or leaving, or they're unbanked. Otherwise, though, it was pretty good.
To agree with the Sammy and go with an 8. He made some really good points. Overall, the smoothing is really good. The only thing I noticed is with the unbanked track and also some of the turns just feel like that janky level.
I would also agree with an 8. Not really any like complaints, but maybe just like some profiling things. But otherwise, it's very good. It's amazing.
That's going to give you an 8.25 out of 10 for smoothness. And the next category is going to be theming slash presentation. Now, what I find interesting about this one is I actually think the theming is much better kind of outside the ride area, closer to the station. In the ride area itself, there's not too much. It's mainly just the interesting different bits of terrain. But I did notice you have some like diamonds stuffed in the tunnels there and some other cool thematics. Plus, on the tops of the hills, of course, you do have those little barns or sheds, whatever you want to call them. So for your theming, I'm going to give you a 10 out of 15.
So for me, this is, if I think about it, this is what a mining site looks like. A lot of the plantation is gone. It's very rocky. Yeah, you'll see some diamonds, so I really like that. Your station looks pretty good. It could use a little bit of more work, and so can your paths and whatnot. I like that, like the launches kind of have like a rebar almost above it, like scaffolding. That's how the scaffolding. I like that because it's also what you would see on mine. So for your score, I'm actually gonna give you 11.
For me, I'm going to give it a 10 out of 15. I really love the rock work and like the jungle area. I feel like though during the the terrain is used really well. However, there's not really much going on during the ride.
I was gonna give it a 9, mainly because during the main ride course, there's not really much. It is just rock work, a few diamonds. The coolest part is the jungle section, and the whole jungle area looks great.
That is going to give you a 10 out of 15 average score for the theming slash presentation, which is very solid. And finally, we have creativity, and I'm going to give you a perfect 5 out of 5. I think this is a very unique layout. I really like what you did here because it's very different than anything I've ever seen, and your work with the mountain is awesome.
I really like the mountain. I think that's the coolest part. I like the idea you were going for with like the doors opening and then you're on the edge of a cliff again. So I'm gonna have to go with the 5.
This is going to get a 5 out of 5 for me, creativity-wise.
For creativity, I would give this a 4 out of 5. I think the story doesn't make the most sense, which is maybe the only thing holding it back. But otherwise, I really like the idea of like, the ride going on the mountain.
I agree. That is going to give you a 4.75 for the creativity category, which is actually the highest so far in that category, and a total score of 29.5 out of 40, which puts you in second place behind the first coaster and above the second coaster. So great job, Skyline Coasters. Thank you for submitting this. The next coaster we have is from Cripper. Alrighty, here is the next coaster, which is called Valkyrie, built by Cripper. There is not actually a written out backstory for this attraction, but it does obviously have this kind of Viking village sort of theme going for it, which is really, really cool. Just visually, right off the bat, this ride looks incredible. You really did a great job. It looks like a lot of this was definitely done custom. You also have a queue built into this ride too, which I'm going to show briefly as well, just before we get into the ride, because this is really intricately woven into the way that the ride is built. Look at this, even some treasure in line as you go down towards the station, and then you go through here. This is a really, really well done attraction here. So we're gonna hop on board. Hopefully I can catch train one. First category, realism. I do think that for the most part, this ride is fairly realistic. There are a few moments where the G's spike and the airtime moments I've noticed just throughout the entire ride are definitely a little stronger than they maybe should be in terms of realism. But I don't think it's too out of the question to see a ride like this built, at least in a similar factor to the way this is. So I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10 for the realism.
For realism, you're gonna get. I think I'm gonna go with a 9 for this one because I think a manufacturer would build this. There are a couple moments that I don't know. It's just a little strong, like Colin said, but it's like so minuscule to like how punchy this layout is. It almost looks like a more fun version of Cheetah Hunt.
This is gonna get a 9 out of 10 for realism for me. Honestly, I was really on board almost with a 10 out of 10, but there was just a couple moments at the ending. It was a little iffy. But other than that, like, overall, it was a really good job.
I'm gonna have to go with a 9 here. My only like problem with this is there's like a weird sideways trim right before the second launch, and Intamin would not do that. Also, as the only one here who's ridden Terran's definitely better than this because this does a lot of like turning and twists. While Terran also does the same thing, but like better, probably because you're going faster in that ride.
We're going to get an 8.75 out of 10 average score for realism. Next category, of course, is smoothness. For smoothness for this one, I'm probably going to go with another 8. I think where I'm kind of struggling to give it a perfect is moments like what we just saw where it's a little jerky and some of the transitions are a little strange. But for the most part, I think it is a very, very smooth ride.
You're also gonna get an 8, and I think the whole ride is very flowy, and you could see how it flows. There's just a couple jerky moments. You know, actually, I'm gonna give it a 9.
The ride flows really well, and I feel like the other coasters, while there was like really there was hardlining on some of them, this one like did the hardlining really well, and like overall was pretty smooth. Like I said, just a couple moments towards the end that I saw. So I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10.
I'm also going with a 9 out of 10. Honestly, there are just like a few moments, but it doesn't take you out of the experience or anything. It's not completely unrealistic.
We're going to give you a average score again of an 8.75 for smoothness, which is also the highest so far. Next category is theming / presentation, and this is absolutely where this coaster shines. I'm going to be awarding the first perfect 15 out of 15 for this coaster right here. You can very clearly tell this wasn't just done with a brush. There was a lot of intricacy brought into designing the theming and the presentation for this attraction.
You're gonna get a 14 out of 15 then for me. Originally it was gonna be a 13 because there are like, I'm a big theming nerd. So like, when it comes to theming, I'm gonna look at everything, and yes, everything is very intricate. I don't want to see any of like the things I'm not supposed to see though. So yeah, I'm gonna give it a 14 out of 15. But otherwise, really good. Like really, really good.
Everything is really well done here. The rock work is like basically perfect. The tree colors are perfect. And the queue line works. The custom queue line is what really does it for me. It works really well with the whole plot of land this thing works with. I'm going to give it a 14 out of 15.
Well, honestly, I don't really know what this person could have done better making the ride. So I'm just going to give it a 15. I'm not the biggest, like, I don't know, elite ball knowledge when it comes to theming, but this just looks sick.
Yeah, this definitely so far is the best themed attraction we've seen so far. It's going to get a 14.5 out of 15 for theming, which is by far the highest score so far out of all the coasters we've seen. And the final category is going to be creativity. Now this I struggle with a little bit because I can definitely see the inspirations for this ride. It's very heavily inspired off rides like Cheetah Hunt and Terran. And I don't really see anything too specific that it does that maybe other coasters don't do. But obviously the way you've worked this into the rock work and everything is really, really well done. But I have seen more creative rides per se, so I am going to go to a 4 out of 5. But this is still incredibly well done.
I'm also gonna kind of have to agree with Colin here. The ride itself is not very creative. Like I said earlier, this is definitely something a manufacturer would do. I think what really kind of drives this is the theme, the way you did the area around it. I think all of that is super cool, and that's where you're gonna get a 3 out of 5.
You're gonna get a 5 out of 5 for creativity for me. Everything looks really well done, especially the theming. That's really well done.
I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5, only because I understand that like Planet Coaster doesn't have the most diverse portfolio when it comes to like scenery pieces, but the Viking theme is kind of basic, but it was executed very well.
That's going to give you an overall average score of a 4 out of 5 for creativity, and a final score of 36 out of 40 to put you right up to number 1, about 4.5 points ahead of our previous number 1, which definitely well deserved. This is one of the best coasters I've seen done in this game in terms of thematics, and even the realism is done really well too. So great job, Clifford. You did an awesome job with Valkyrie. And next coaster we have is from Rusty. Our next coaster is Dragon Quest, again from Rusty, and this is going to be another Intamin Blitz style coaster. This one with 6 cars, it looks like. Yes. So this is quite the interesting one. There is not a storyline or backstory to go along with this ride, but you can see it takes up a very large area. It's a very sprawling attraction. So I'm going to quit my yapping and hop aboard this ride. So the first category, of course, is realism, and I'm very conflicted on this one. So I feel like there are moments that are actually very realistic and well done, but then in between there's moments that are kind of jarring and a little strange, like for instance this launch downhill out of the station, which is very peculiar. But then you have an element like the 0G roll, which is very well done and smooth. And I think that for what this ride is trying to be, which kind of feels like a mix of like Cheetah Hunt and I guess something like, I don't know, Ka, I can see what you're going for. But I am going to have to give this a 5 for the realism, just because there are a lot of moments that feel a little awkward.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same page about what a lot of things that Colin said. It almost feels like you designed elements and then just was like, I don't know what to put in between. Like this roll, and then you're just kind of going straight for a minute. And then you're back into like a good part. Like, I don't know, it's just kind of weird. It's like part, and then break, and then part. But otherwise, they're like realism, you're going to get knocked points now, but there's a lot of cool creative things, which I'll get into later. But I don't know if a manufacturer would build this.
I'm gonna have to go 3 out of 10 for realism. There is some good moments, however, a lot of it just feels very kind of thrown together, and some of the transitions, which kind of goes into smoothness.
I'm gonna go with a 4 here. It seems like you want to submitted like a troll or like meme ride, because like I don't know, there's just no way that like this thing would ever get built. It doesn't look bad, but yeah, there's like the random straight section before this massive 0G roll.
So it's going to give you an overall score of 4 for realism. The next category is going to be smoothness, and there's definitely like moments like that where it's kind of just that sudden drop with trims on it, very jarring, and some of your inversions and things like that are very nice and smooth and fluid, but then a lot of the moments in between are kind of jarring and strange. So for smoothness, I am also going to give you a 5 out of 10.
There are definitely good parts with this smoothing. There's like, it's kind of hard to say, only because everything is so like drawn out, which isn't a bad thing. So I guess like even if something's not smooth, it wouldn't kill you. So I guess I'm gonna go with a 5.
I'm gonna give this a 4. Like I said, there is some like the inversions are smooth. However, the transitions, the random straight sections, just kind of feel very out of place.
The smoothness, yeah, it's a fine coaster. Like the top hat's a little iffy, but that's because smoothing a top hat in this game is hard, because when you smooth it, like moves everything around. But the flow of the ride isn't really there, like people were saying before. 6. I'll give it a 6.
6. So that is going to equal out to a 5 out of 10 for smoothness overall. And now we have theming / presentation. I think this is definitely going to be your stronger category. the theme definitely has me a little confused as to what it is. I can kind of put the pieces together where like the top hat is kind of the dragon and you're going through these portals, and then you have the Viking village at the back and all the foliage in between, and this little guy down here too. So I definitely like what you did. It's very interesting. I will say backstory maybe would have helped me understand it a little bit, but I can put the pieces together either way. And you definitely put a lot of time and effort into things like the villages and stuff like that. So I do appreciate that. So for that, I'm going to give you a 9 out of 15 for the theming.
Holland might have knocked my score because I thought I got it, but I guess I didn't. I was interpreting that like the colors of the track were like based off of like what the dragon's doing, and then it combined the whatever element doing to like form the top hat. But I don't know because like the colors are different. Like it feels like you took the brush, like I was selling for one of the other creations. It feels like you took the brush and put it around, and then just a couple of the pre-builds. So unfortunately, I think I'm gonna have to go with a 7 in this category. It's not bad. There are good parts of it.
I really like the scenery. I like the change in track colors to have it like blend into certain areas. My main gripe is especially like the top hat. Some custom supports should have been used, in my opinion, to make it look a lot better on the theming wise. I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 15.
I would give it a solid 12. It's all there. The execution wasn't the best, but as a whole thing, it's pretty good.
That is going to equal out to a 9.25 average score for theming, which leads us into the final category, which is creativity. And I'd be lying if I said this wasn't a creative coaster. It's definitely something unlike I've ever seen built in this game. It's definitely a little disjointed in the sense that it feels like a couple different coasters kind of mashed together with these really weird transitions. But, I mean, that is kind of the definition of creativity. It tries something different, and I have to respect it for that. So I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5 for creativity. I do like the layout a lot from that perspective.
I'm gonna stick also with the 4 out of 5. It's definitely something that I don't think we've seen before, but there are elements that we've seen, but you haven't seen them all smashed into one coaster.
I'll give it a 4 out of 5. While there is some like copy paste elements, there is some parts I really like. That like you really did like think about like a lot of it. I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5.
I'm in between a 4 or 5 because I really like the story. It's really just the portals, like before and after the top hat. I feel like that's genius to me. I never thought of doing anything like that. And then you go over the circus, and there's a little animatronic in that town. Like that's really cool. I'll get a 5.
That is going to equal out to a 4.25 for the creativity. Give me a second to do some math, and we'll get the final score, which is a 22.5 out of 40, which is going to land it just above Wrath of the Nature Titan, which was in last place prior, and it still is in last place with this coaster going right above it. But great job, Rusty. Thank you for submitting this. The next coaster comes from DJRD. All right, and here we are at Reptile, which is DJRD's coaster. This is a Vekoma new-gen multi-launch coaster with 5 cars. The first Vekoma we've had so far, if I'm not mistaken. So let's go ahead and give it a ride. So the first category is going to be realism, and I think it's pretty realistic overall. There are a few moments where the G's spike a little higher than they should. I saw a few moments where it went a bit over 5, and a couple of strong lateral moments that were maybe a little too strong. But overall, I think this is actually a really, really well done layout. I'm going to give it an 8 for realism.
Yeah, I think this is something that Vekoma especially would build. It kind of feels like it's very flowy, and I think I'm gonna also have to agree with the 8.
I'm gonna go 7 out of 10 for realism. I was really on board for a while. I feel like, however, the pace changed from like normal G-forces to like crazy positives back to like normal.
The layouts are really good, but honestly, the profiling on that top hat, the steepness, like it gets too steep too soon, and so when it bottoms out, it kind of looks silly. But everything else is good, so I would give this an 8.
That is going to lead to an average score of 7.75 for the realism category, which is very solid. That is one of our higher scores. Next up is going to be smoothness, and I am probably going to give this a 9 for smoothness. I think there's just a couple moments where it's maybe a little jarring just from what Vekoma would do. I mean, if this was an Intamin, this would probably be pretty on par. But there are a few moments that are maybe just a little too quick. But in terms of smoothness, I mean, everything flows well. Nothing feels jerky at all. It's a very well done layout.
Yeah, I would agree with mainly what Colin said there. I think this is what Vekoma would do. Like I said earlier, it's very flowy. It's a couple elements feel intimate, which like I don't. It just like turn like I don't. I don't want to say it rubs me the wrong way. It's just like it feels weird in a Vekoma layout, but it's not bad. So I think I'm gonna go with. I think I'm gonna stick with an 8 here.
I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. It kind of goes back to my realism part. The smoothness for the most part is good, but I just feel like some elements are just taken way too rapidly.
For smoothness, I would give it a 9. The whole layout is smooth. There are a few elements that like you go through either too slow or too fast, but that doesn't take away from like the fact that there's no joltiness.
That leads to an average score of 8.5 for smoothness. Now the next category is theming / presentation, and I'm going to be completely honest, that's probably where this coaster falls big time. There really just isn't much here in terms of theming and presentation. I mean, there are some trees, but that was probably just done either by manually placing a few of them or just using the brush. And actually, if I get off the ride and just look around, you can see right there, there's a couple like little things, there's like a little portal for some of the pathways into the area, and there's a couple little buildings here and there, but nothing too much, quite frankly. So I am gonna have to give this. I'm probably gonna give it a 2. At least there are trees, and a little bit of some buildings here, but theming is definitely not the strong suit of this attraction.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Colin here. The trees feel like he took the brush. Not even a station. The buildings to me don't do anything to the ride. It doesn't mean anything to the ride. So for me, it's a 1.
This is getting a 1 out of for me. It's just the Planet Coaster trees. There's no station. There's not really anything, and even like, I think this is trying to be in like a forest, but like it's not like fully in the forest. Like what part of the edge of the ride like is out in the open. I'm just getting a 1 from me.
Yeah, there's like 2 buildings. Like Sammy said, bare minimum. This isn't bare minimum, but this is bare minimum for roller coaster competition on Discord.
There is an entrance.
So I would go with 3.
That is going to lead to an average score of a 1.75 for the theming / presentation, which is going to be the lowest so far. And finally, we have the creativity category, and I can't really award this thing too many points in this because I feel like it's pretty much just it's run-of-the-mill Vekoma New Gen coaster, which does not mean it's bad. It's a very well-designed New Gen Vekoma, but I don't really think it does anything too unique. There are a couple pretty cool-looking elements that are definitely custom that I haven't seen on any other Vekomas, but for the most part, I do think it is fairly run-of-the-mill, and obviously there isn't really any theming to work with, so there's no creativity in that regard. So I'm going to give it a 2 for creativity.
You're gonna get a 2 out of me. The ride itself is the ride itself is very cool and whatnot. It's something Vekoma would do, like I said. There's a couple moments Intamin would do, which is kind of where the 2 comes from. But otherwise, like, just it's a generic roller coaster to me.
Part of this feels like Vekoma, part of this feels like Intamin, just kind of like meshed together. There is some unique elements as well that I feel like would be good. However, a lot of it's like copy-paste elements from other Vekomas, so I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5.
I'm also gonna go with 3 out of 5 here. Not like the most generic thing in the world, and I like the elements and the succession of everything. But it's when you're making a Vekoma, like a new gen Vekoma, there's only so many elements you can do, like pick and copy and paste from. But from this, it's not terrible with this one.
That is going to lead to a overall creativity score of a 2.5 out of 5 and a total score of 20.5, which does actually put this in last place, which I think that kind of speaks to the fact that this competition was much more focused on theming, and obviously this coaster didn't really have anything for theming, but I think if it was a themed attraction, this would probably be very high up in terms of the rankings because the coaster itself is very well designed. It has some of the highest realism and smoothness scores. But if there was some theming, I think it would definitely do a lot better. But the next coaster that we have to look at is going to be from Jolly Grant.
What is the weather forecast? It will rain all day. I know, we can play the rainy day game. What's the rainy day game? I'll show you.
And apparently this is what the rainy day game is. This is a 3-car Intamin Blitz or multi-launch model. I think you can definitely see some of the inspiration coming from Falcon's Flight, which just opened at Six Flags Qiddiya. There's definitely some clear inspiration there. I am going to switch it to nighttime temporarily so you can see some of the fireworks, because there are some fireworks and some lighting built into this ride, which is really, really a nice touch. And there's also some nice underglow, actually, under all these trees. I did not notice that. That's really cool. And there's some nice lighting underneath the stall there. I think we're going to do this one at night for the POV, because it seems like this was definitely designed to be looked at night. So we'll definitely go for that. So first category is realism, and I'm kind of conflicted on this one because I feel there are moments that are very realistic because it's very heavily inspired off of Falcon's Flight. A lot of the maneuvers it has are definitely inspired by that ride, but there's also some moments where it definitely does spike over allowed G-force limits, both positive and negative. So I do have to knock it for that. So I'm going to give it a 7 for realism. I don't think it's entirely likely that it would ever be built because it's huge, but like with some modifications, it could realistically exist.
You know, honestly, I'm gonna be a little bit nicer about this. I feel like, yeah, like there are modifications to the ride that needs to be made, but the ride that's physically here, like I can see it being built. I guess I can't give it that score, but all right, you'll get a 9. I'm gonna round up to a 9.
Okay, I'm gonna be like a little controversial and say this is not as like realistic as some other things we have seen so far. I just feel like it's a large coaster that's way too fast paced with the G forces way too high for that. I just think the G forces need to be like brought down a lot more for this to work. So I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 10 realism.
I did have a question. Is this themed to Peppa Pig?
Yes, I think it is.
Okay, so I like that because there is like a coaster out there that's themed to Peppa Pig. So that's pretty realistic. I like
That's why you like it.
well, because it's realistic. but anyways, I think it's pretty realistic. There's like a few elements that just aren't like. Honestly, I don't know if they would do a turn after the downhill launch. I don't know if Intamin would do some. I mean, they would if you gave them enough money, but like a 7.
7. Okay, so this is probably the most divisive one. The average score does wind up being a 7, but the scores were a little all over the place, which I kind of expected. This is a very unique ride. And the next category, of course, is going to be smoothness. And I actually think this is a really, really smooth ride, all things considered. There's not really very many bad transitions or anything like that. And in terms of the way it tracks, despite some of the elements being absolutely ridiculous, it is still a very smooth ride. So I'm not going to give it a perfect score just because it's not like 100% realistic, but I'm going to give it a 9 for smoothness.
I think I'm also gonna agree with the 9. It's really smooth. Like everything flows very well.
As much as I bash the coaster for its realism, it is really smooth and it does it really well. I didn't really see a moment where it was like jank, even with like the crazy G-forces, the crazy speed. As much as I bashed it for its realism, I'll give it a perfect 10 out of 10 for smoothness.
It is actually pretty smooth. I would go with an 8, just because there are like a few transitions and like the hill and the house is kind of like janky. Not that it's like rough, just the profiling of it is like too short for how fast you're going.
So next up we have, the overall score for smoothness is going to be a 9 out of 10 average score. The next category is the most important one, which is the theming / presentation. And the more I look at this ride as it's going through its course, this is genuinely very well done. Like, you could tell there was quite a bit of effort put into this, between all the lighting effects, the fireworks, plus the fact that this takes up such a gigantic area. And I also have to respect a lot of the custom supports I've been noticing throughout the layout. I really, really like what they did with this. I can't say it's as good as the one we saw earlier, the Viking themed one, just because that was so well done. But I'd say this is really good for other reasons. So I'm going to give this a 13 out of 15 for the theming.
I also want to point out that I think they got the highest score for smoothness out of everybody. As for theming, like it was Peppa Pig. It took me a second, but I got it
right there on the brake run.
So like, you did a pretty good job, and I also like the pink lighting on the train. It kind of feels like a meme coaster, but like it was kind of well done, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So and like the trees are fine. It feels like you took the brush, but you added a couple extras. You did do a full transfer track, and I do appreciate that. So presentation there, and then obviously all the custom supports. Yeah, you're gonna get a 13 out of 15 for me.
The custom supports are really cool, and the terrain difference is cool, and there's like some of the trees around. I do like that. However, I feel like there's no set pieces during the ride, so I'm gonna give it a 10 out of 15.
Can you look under the station? The guy said that there was theming under the station.
Yes, there is. There's a whole queue.
Wow. I hope this doesn't
Wait, I
change
wanna
your
check
guys'
back my
scores.
score.
You'll wake him.
So I think I'm gonna give this a 15 because I love the theme.
Why is George the cage? Oh, he's under the table. He's under the table. He's hiding from Daddy Pig.
How'd you know that was George?
Listen, I grew up watching this show. I know a lot about it.
Okay, I didn't realize this part.
I might be
Am I on the
revising my
technical
score,
score?
actually. Yeah, I think we all
Yeah.
might want to revise our score after seeing this. I'm going to bump it up to a 14. This is hilarious.
I'll be a 12.
Changing
Colin,
your
you're gonna
score?
have to deal with it. I'm gonna give you a Yeah, you're gonna have to deal with it. I'm giving it a 13.5. I'm sorry, but it's like I can't give it a full point, but I have to give it extra credit.
So
I don't
that
know
is
what I
going
would
to
change.
equal out to a 13.625. Thanks, Sammy, for the theming / presentation. But for creativity, this gets a perfect 5. I was not expecting somebody to do something like this, and it's not just like a ripoff of Falcon's Flight. It's actually like a really cool design. I think it's hilarious, but also just very well done. So perfect 5.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with the 5 out of 5. It's so different and something I just wouldn't expect. Like it's like taking like what is like mustard and like pancakes and just like putting it together. And it's like, I don't know if that would work or not, but apparently it does.
I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5. There are some parts that kind of like heavily feel Falcon's Flight to me, like a little bit, but overall, the theming is really cool, and the coaster itself, despite me bashing the realism, I think it's a smooth ride. It flows well.
Honestly, I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 5. I just love the idea that there's like this super intense coaster that's themed to like a children's show.
That is going to lead to a creativity score of 4.75 and an overall score of a 34.38, which puts this comfortably in second place, right behind Valkyrie. I was honestly starting to get a little worried that this might beat it, because that one obviously had a lot of time and effort put into it. And I'm not saying this one didn't, but it's very clearly a meme coaster, but it's a really well done meme coaster. So I got to give a lot of credit to you, Jolly Grant, because this one surprised me in a very pleasant way. I love this. This is so good. The next coaster comes from X Quality. All right, so this next coaster is called Danger 7. This is a Vekoma multi-launch coaster. Sammy, you want to hit us with the backstory they provided?
Welcome to Danger 7, the most elite squadron of spacecraft pilots in the galaxy. Join them on their mission to stop the Celestial Purge and save the universe. Along your run, target the 3 prismatic cores and bring an end to mass destruction.
This one is definitely going to be an interesting one. It's a very abstract theme, and I have a feeling it's going to be one of the best themed ones, so let's take a look. There is also a custom audio score. This is one of the most impressive ones we have seen so far, especially with that custom audio score that X Quality did for this ride. I mean, very well done. But we're going to start off with the realism category, and I will say that while the theming is so well done, the coaster, it's not perfect. And of course, like I said, I am going to be harsh. I have very high standards for the smoothness of coasters. And in terms of looking at it from a realism perspective, I think a lot of these elements could be seen on Vekoma's coasters, but I think that the way in which they're profiled is just a little off. So I am going to give this a 7 for realism.
Yeah, this coaster kind of made me realize how hard it is to like get all these categories just right. The ride itself, I can see Vekoma doing a lot of these elements, like Colin said. It's just the way it was done, I wouldn't say is right. But I see the vision, so I'm gonna give you a 6 out of 10.
I am gonna give it a 9 out of 10 for realism, because I do see this as something like Vekoma would go out of their way and doing, because the elements for the most part look really well done. The only thing is, I feel like just towards the beginning, as we see, a couple elements are just taking a little too fast. But other than that, I think it flows really well, and this is something that definitely could be built by them.
This is definitely like a 6 or 7 type of realism ride. Not much to say because this could totally be real, but just the way it was executed is kind of unrealistic. But it's really good. I would give it 7.
That is going to equal out to a 7.25 average score for realism, which is definitely solid. Now we have smoothness. I'm going to kind of hold the same sentiment and give it another 7 here. I do think there are a little bit of jarring moments, some weird transitions here and there, but I think overall the layout does flow fairly well.
I think I almost agree with everything that Colin said there. I think that I'm going to give it a 7. I think a lot of the transitions are a little janky, wonky, but like you get it right in some of the parts, and then the rest of it I understand. So again, I'll give it a 7.
This is gonna get a 7 for smoothness for me, because especially like towards the beginning, you can see some of like the going through the elements, the train's just like hunching through it. But I feel like towards the end, you kind of got the smoothest down. I just feel like the beginning part, you can see like the jankiness and like how the trains move throughout the track. So I'm gonna give it 7 smoothness wise.
Going off of what Vinny says, like after the beginning of the ride, it is very smooth, but the beginning of the ride, there is some jank. So it's another 6 or 7, probably 7. Yeah, I'll give it 7.
That equals out to a perfect 7 average score for the smoothness. Now, before we go ahead and review the theming, I do want to go through the queue because I was requested to go through the queue because it is done very elaborately. So we are going to take a walk through it. Through here, all the way down here. You got even, oh my lord. And you go in, it looks like, yep.
I was expecting a 7-hour line.
Wow, this is nuts. Here, you go up. Danger 7. Very
my
Star
God.
Wars. I'm kind of getting like Rise of the Resistance from this. Here. Wow, this is nuts.
You gotta tell. Has the queue gotten this long?
I don't know. Wow, and then the station. Look how well done the station is too. You got like all the helmets in here, all the computer equipment, more stuff back here. Wow. This is really, really well done. You're definitely getting a perfect 15 out of 15 for the theming for me. This is possibly the best one yet. I think it's very close between this and the Viking one, but this is just done at a level we haven't seen yet, especially with the onboard audio, and I love the launch sequence too. It's so well done.
The theme in itself, I think you did a lot, and I think it looks really good for what you did. Same with the Viking one. I feel like there's things that we shouldn't see that we do, which I know that's kind of hard to like ask, but like some things just don't blend as well, and like the area around it, like I feel like you could at least put some trees around it. I'm not gonna knock you too much for that. Also, the door is open on the track. I gotta knock you because I knocked the other guy for it. Otherwise, though, it looks really cool. The queue especially is really cool. And the onboard audio gets you some bonus points there. So I'm gonna give you a 13 out of 15.
I was gonna mention that part if you guys didn't, about the doors opening on the track, that we did knock that, so I'm gonna have to knock it here. I think I'm gonna give this a 14 out of 15.
I'm also going to give it a 14 out of 15. I really love the effect of the first launch when you're like in space. That is sick. And the whole like idea of like the space theme is really good there. It's just, yeah, the door, maybe the boxiness of the buildings that cover like the station and the show parts. That, like, if they were themed more on the outside, there would definitely be a 15, but I mean, that's really it.
That's going to average out to a score of 14 out of 15 for the theming / presentation, which is second place for this category. And the final category, of course, is creativity. This is definitely getting a 5 out of 5 for me. I think the theming is what really does it, and I love that onboard audio. It really does complete the ride for me. And I also think the layout in general is really cool. It's a very long ride, and it just incorporates so many very cool elements into it, and I really, really like what they did here.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 5. I think it's almost something Parks would do, but not quite. And ultimately, I think that's pretty good.
This gets a 5 out of 5 for me, creativity-wise. Everything was done almost perfect. I think if they touched up the little things, this would be literally like a perfect coaster.
Yeah, definitely 5 out of 5. Great idea, great concept, great execution.
That is going to average out to a 5 for creativity, which is a perfect score, and an overall score of a 33.25, which ranks it very high up. I believe that puts it at 3rd place, just behind the coaster we just saw, which was the Daddy Fig or Peppa Pig inspired coaster. And it is still not beating Valkyrie, which is the Viking themed coaster. But very, very great submission. Thank you for the custom soundtrack. I really do appreciate that, because that shows a lot of attention to detail. And it's a very unique, cool theme that really does use all those sci-fi pieces masterfully. So great job. Next coaster is going to come from Matt5454. Second to last coaster of the battle. This is actually part of a larger park, but we're just focusing on this attraction here. And this is Volcano the Blast.
Inspired by Volcano the Blast coaster at King's Dominion.
And that's it.
That's it.
That is it. So let's go take a ride. This is a mock multi-launch coaster. I believe this is only the 2nd mock that we've had so far. Most of them have been Intimates. And I should also note, it was mentioned that this was built on console, not on PC. First category, of course, realism. I am probably going to give this a 6. I think that it is just a very strange layout. I think there are some moments that are very cool and definitely could exist in real life, but some of the elements are taken way too quick, like this roll, for instance. It's very smooth, but in terms of realism, I think it's just not quite there, so I am going to give this a 6.
The ride itself is very cool. Like, I think, like, it's, if the ride itself was just smoothed and banked a little bit better, I would say, yeah, a manufacturer would do this. I'm like kind of watching this again as you go around it. I just want to like, I almost need like a second glance, because it's like it's almost there for me to give it a really good score. I don't like this turn going into the launch, because the back row would be weird. I'll go with a 7.
I'm giving it a 6 out of 10. I feel like you could have something like realistic here that someone would build if a lot of the elements were just redone or reshaped.
It's not bad, but I'm also just gonna give it a 6, because it's not bad, but it's not like it's gonna be built. But I like the idea.
Averages out to a 6.25 for the realism. Now we have smoothness. Smoothness, I'm probably going to be a little harsher, because I think that's what kind of holds back the realism. I'm going to give it a 5. I feel like there's a lot of transitions that are kind of wonky, and some really weird kind of jittery moments, and some of the inversions, like this one right here, while smooth, they are taken way too quickly and rotate too fast, so I'm going to give it a 5.
I think, like, the transitions are fine. I feel the flow it's trying to do, like, everything has a purpose, if that makes sense. But the smoothness isn't quite exactly there, but like I feel the flowiness. There's not really a category of flowiness, so I'm gonna kind of give you a couple extra points there. So I'm gonna give it a 7.
A 6 for smoothing. I feel like there are some parts you just have to adjust the banking a little bit, and for like I said before on the realism, that some of the elements are taking a little too fast, even though it is smooth. It's just taken way too fast, so it's like really whippy as a result, and like kind of exceeds the fast the G-forces a little bit that we're sticking to. So that's why I'm giving it a 6.
Now, I kind of feel bad, because this was made on console, and I played, I think I did play Planet Coaster 2 on console, but I was at someone's house playing it. All I made was a bad invert, and it was so difficult to just do it. So the fact that this guy made this coaster on a console, I'm impressed. However, just to judge it fairly, the smoothing it's a 7, because it's not bad, but there are just parts where, you know, maybe the transition's just rough, or it's not banked enough in a certain part.
I would agree. For consoles, it's definitely solid. And it's making a 6.25 average for smoothness. Now we have theming / presentation, and I think it's going to get all of its points for me from that last section we just saw there, where it goes under the path and interacts with volcanoes and everything. I think that is really, really well done, and it seems like there's a lot of time and effort put into making that work properly. The rest of the ride is definitely a little generic in terms of the way the theming is done. It's kind of just around the mountain with the trees, but it still looks good, which is the most important thing at the end of the day. But it's definitely going to get most of its points from the ending there. So for me, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 15 for the theming. It's solid.
Yeah, it goes on and off. Like I'm getting like flamed about it in the chat, but I'm not a big fan of the brushes, and you can kind of tell when the brushes are used. In this case, I think it's okay with the mountain and everything, but there are still things that like you see that you shouldn't see, and it just kind of makes me mad, because it's like it could have been there, but it's not. So out of 15, it's gonna get a 11 for me.
I have a question for you guys. Have any of you ridden Volcano the Blast coaster?
I saw it though.
No.
Okay. So I will agree with what Sammy said. The theming is on and off. However, one thing I had to point out, because I have ridden it in its last year of operation in 2018, and as you know, Volcano has a rolling launch. I know this is like inspired by it, but I wish it kind of had like a rolling launch. That's just me personally, though. I will give this, with the on and off theming and just my little gripe about that, I'll give it a 10 out of 15 for theming.
The theming's fine. It's nothing special, but you know, there's definitely a lot of effort put into it. There are dual spots like we just saw there, where like I would put in like bushes on the ground rather than just keep it like a flat grass. I'd go with a 9.
That's going to equal out to a 9.75 average score for the theming/presentation. Final category, of course, is creativity. And I won't give this too much in terms of flack for the creativity, because I do think the layout is unique. I like the volcano theme, especially the ending there. I think that's definitely where it's going to get most of its points for me. But in terms of how it compares to like other coasters of a similar model, at the end of the day, it's a pretty run-of-the-mill mock multi-launch with your kind of standard elements. So I'm going to go right in the middle and give it a 3 out of 5.
It's like, I don't know, just kind of, for this ride, I don't know why, it just feels like it's there for me. Obviously it's inspired off Volcano the Blast coaster. That's a real coaster. So like, it's not like you're trying something crazy different. It's taking a mock and then making a modern day version of Volcano. So it doesn't feel crazy creative. I think it's gonna get a 2 for me. It does cool stuff, just nothing too crazy.
As much as I like the Volcano inspiration, on a creative scale, it's kind of just a mock Volcano. So I'm gonna give it a 2 out of 5.
Creative, it is right in the middle. I agree with Sammy. It's just kind of there. I do like the idea of like Volcano the Blast coaster, and this kind of follows it, and obviously it's inspired off of it. So I would give it a 3.
It's going to equal out to a 2.5 for the creativity of this attraction, which once I add up all of the other categories, that is going to give us a final score of a 24.75, which when I look at the other coasters, is going to rank kind of in the middle, in the lower half of the middle. And I think that's fair. Lots of credit where it's due for creating this on console. I know that is not easy, and I really appreciate you doing that for this competition, because like I said, it is not easy. And overall, I do think there's a lot to like about this coaster. It is a little more on the generic side, but either way, I enjoyed it. And the final coaster of the competition is going to be from Adrenaline Rush Coaster Media. Let's go check it out. Alright, so this coaster is called the Labyrinth. It is actually the only fully indoor coaster that we have, and it's very different than the other ones. Sammy, do you want to read the backstory for us?
Venture inside and I'm gonna fix the grammar. Venture inside a very much unfinished and unwelcoming box of a temple that houses one of the rarest artifacts of all, the Minotaur Medallion. This rare artifact is so fragile and large that one closed eye could shatter it, even without putting a finger on it. You lucky travelers get to go inside this rather suspicious location and find the medallion yourself. But if it breaks, so does the labyrinth, and no one knows what happens at this point, as no one got to tell the tale.
Now this one, like I said, very, very different. It is more of an intimate family coaster. It is a intimate blitz technically, but it is a family coaster. Runs one train, and you're going to see why once we hop on board, because this is definitely the most unique coaster of the bunch. So, like I said, very unique, very different than the other ones we have in the competition here. First category is going to be realism. I think that's probably where this coaster is going to struggle the most, because I feel like I don't know if I can see this being built. And that's not really the swing launch section that bugs me, because I do think that is really well done. It's very creative, because I've never seen a coaster built like this before in this game, so that's awesome. But for realism, I'm probably going to give it I'll go with a 7, just because some of the transitions are a little jarring, which I understand that's kind of the nature of the game. But I do think it is a really well-designed ride.
You know, I don't think the transitions are actually that bad for me. The only reason I really couldn't see someone building this is capacity, pretty much, which I'm sure you could low-key probably put a turntable on it. But otherwise, like, I could see someone building this. Yeah, I mean, like, It's a family coaster, so it's a little bit easier to kind of say. Harder to judge it based on the other two. I'm gonna give it a 9.
This is a very interesting concept, I will say. I think this could realistically be built as for a park if like they were to do something like this. However, honestly, I will
Hard.
go say 10.
I could only be saying this because I want to see it built, but I could totally see it be built. I would go with a 9.
It's going to equal out to an 8.25 for the realism. Next up is going to be smoothness. And I'm kind of in a similar boat where some of the transitions are maybe a little jarring, but I understand that having a coaster that goes forwards and backwards at different speeds is going to make it a little tricky to get everything right. I think my biggest issue is going to be this element right here, where I feel like it's just a little jarring. For the most part, it tracks very smooth, so I am going to give it an 8 out of 10.
I would say it flows. The only thing that doesn't really flow is like some of the banking's kind of weird. But I don't think that like it would just kind of make it for like a weird transition rather than like an unrealistic one. Slash, like it would just be a little unsmooth, I guess. So I'm gonna go with an 8. Smoothness is all right.
Yeah, I'd say the smoothness is alright. I'll give it a 7 out of 10. There's some moments there that felt a little jank.
I'm gonna go with an 8. Nothing too crazy, but yeah, there's just a few janky things. Not terrible though.
It's going to equal out to a 7.75 out of 10 for the smoothness. Now we get to the theming / presentation, which is definitely where this ride shines. The only reason I'm not going to give it a perfect score is because I feel like it almost kind of gets it easy because it's an indoor coaster, and it's a lot easier to theme an indoor coaster versus one that's outdoor and exposed to the elements. There are some pieces where the walls are a little bare, but I think a lot of the effects that you see in here, like this one right here with the spike, and then as you go backwards through this tunnel with everything spinning, this in particular, probably one of the coolest effects I've ever seen done in this game, and that definitely deserves a lot of props. Plus the Minotaur that comes charging out mid-ride, so cool. So there's a lot I really like about the theme of this ride. I'm gonna give it a 14 out of 15.
See, it's weird, like, cause yeah, this one's indoors, so it's kind of harder to say. But I'm also like king of the indoor coasters here.
Self-proclaimed.
It feels like yeah, but it feels kind of like a coaster that would go to like one of the SeaWorld parks, but then it has like universal elements with like the spinning walls and the Minotaur that charges out at you. So it's pretty cool. Like I think some of the presentation things could look a little bit more like realistic, like the rings are just kind of floating. I feel like there are things that I shouldn't see that I do. Otherwise though, it's really cool. Like I think the indoor factor is pretty cool. I'm gonna go with, I'll give it a. Oh, I also want to point out the doors are above the track. It's above the track, so it gets a 13. But that one isn't. Actually 12, sorry.
I was about to point that out for you. It was like you just had that moment where the theming piece went right through. I will say that I get what he's going for. Really nice theme. I love the animatronic there that's coming right after you, and like all the animatronics. This is like, I think this is the first one that's had animatronic mid-ride, unless I'm wrong.
The Rusty Coaster. It was on the
Okay,
ground.
never mind. I am wrong. Okay. I'll give it a...
You gotta start all over again. Vinny wasn't paying attention.
Change your score.
Change the score. All right. I do like how the animatronics flow here, though, and like how the theming is in general. I'll give it a 13 out of 15.
I was gonna give it a 14. The only thing it's missing are like just not enough stuff on the walls. But Antonio, he's in the chat here. He said that his computer doesn't have ray tracing, so the lighting's kind of bad, and he didn't bother much with the walls. Probably just because he didn't know how it would look on like a computer with ray tracing.
Very understandable. It's going to average out to a 13.25 for the theming / presentation, which is one of the higher scores out of all of them. And the final category, of course, is creativity. This is an easy 5 out of 5 for me. Everything about this ride, for the most part, is incredibly creative, especially the way that he designed it to use the station as a multi-pass and have that switch track act in such a unique way that I've never seen before. This is an easy, perfect score for creativity for me.
I think creativity is different, and I like that approach, so I'm gonna give it a 5.
This is an easy 5 out of 5 for me. I like this unique shuttle coaster concept.
Yeah, I agree. This is definitely a 5. No complaints with like, oh, it's not original, because I've literally never seen that tunnel effect ever done in the coaster, or a multi-pass like station launch shuttle with a switch track. It's just incredible.
That is going to average out to a 5 out of 5 for creativity, with a total score of 34.25, which is very high up there. What we're going to go do now is rank them all up based on the final score that we received to show you guys all of those. Give us a moment as we rank them all, and we'll get back to you guys with the winners. At number 10 was DJRD with Reptile, which had a 20.5 out of 40. Number 9 was XYRAXIS, sorry, I still don't know how to say it, with Wrath of the Natron Titan, 21.25 out of 40. Number 8 was Rusty with Dragon Quest, 22.5 out of 40. Number 7 was Matt5454 with Volcano the Blast, 24.75 out of 40. Number 6 was Skyline Coasters with Ourea, 29.5 out of 40. Number 5 was Corolla SE with Mind Blast, 31.5 out of 40. Number 4 was X Koala T with Danger 7, 33.25 out of 40. Now, getting into the top 3. At number 3, we have Adrenaline Rush Coaster Media with The Labyrinth, a 34.25 out of 40. Number 2 goes to Jolly Grant with The Rainy Day Game, a 34.38. At number 1, we have Cripper with Valkyrie getting a 36 out of 40. And I want to just put it out there again, every coaster on the list of submissions, especially all of the top 5, very, very well done. If you got above a 30 or even close to a 30, to me, that's a really, really good score. We were making sure that we were very critical with our ratings. That was not to degrade anyone's creations. We think you all did an excellent job, and I seriously want to thank you all so much for participating. It was really fun getting to see all these
Except for
really
Aaron's
unique creations. Yeah, Aaron's, we don't talk about Aaron's.
Wait, I submitted one?
Apparently.
Okay.
But like I said, you guys all did a great job, and hopefully, seeing other people's Planet Coaster creations inspires you to make something unique for your park as well. And we will be hosting a second one, that is for sure. I'm very happy with how this one went, so stay tuned for details in the Unload Station Discord server as to when you can expect to see the next Planet Coaster competition. But if you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Another special shout out to our winner, Cripper, and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye, guys.